welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into the absolutely fascinating evolutionary story of how humans connect, and, well, perhaps more importantly, how we completely misfire. You know, communication is something we do every single day, usually without a second thought. But the actual mechanics behind how a thought leaves your brain and somehow enters someone else's, that's a wildly complex journey, and scientists have spent literally decades trying to decode it. Think about a time you sent a simple email or maybe a quick text message that was just disastrously misunderstood. You thought you were being perfectly clear, right? But the person on the receiving end took it entirely the wrong way. Ask yourself, why exactly did that happen? Where did the breakdown actually occur? Was it the words you chose, the medium you used, or was it the person reading it? To answer that, we're going to diagnose exactly where communication breaks down by looking at 4 historic models. We'll cover decoding Shannon and Weaver, Lasswell's 5 big questions, Schramm's two-way street, Berlow's human element, and wrap up with the future of connection. Okay, let's jump right into section 1, decoding Shannon and Weaver, and the mathematical theory of communication. So, picture this. It's 1948, and an American mathematician named Shannon and an electronic engineer named Weaver team up to fix a very mechanical problem for the telephone industry. The result they came up with was a strictly linear path. It was designed to develop effective communication over a channel, and it essentially views communication as a tidy, highly mathematical sequence. You have an information source that selects a message, a transmitter encodes it into signals, it travels, and then a receiver decodes it back to a destination. Now, the major breakthrough in their 1948 article was identifying a disrupting concept they called noise. And in their model, noise isn't just someone talking loudly in a cafe. It represents literally any physical distraction that scrambles the signal as it transfers from the encoder to the decoder. They were thinking about physical interruptions, things like loud horn sounds, thunder strikes, or roaring crowd noise that physically break the signal on its journey. Let's see how this plays out in a really practical scenario. Imagine a sender, let's call him Thompson, picking up the telephone to call his assistant. He says, "Come here, I want to see you." The telephone encodes his voice, and the cable acts as the channel. But right at that moment, a loud distraction in the room, our noise, creates a transmission error. The assistant, our receiver, only hears the words "I want." Because of that physical noise, the assistant just can't decode the full message and has to send feedback asking, "Wait, what do you want, Thompson?" The signal was physically broken. Moving right along to section 2, Lasswell's 5 big questions and analyzing communication as an act. So Shannon and Weaver perfectly mapped the wires and the signals. It was like they built the plumbing. But to understand the actual meaning of the message, the water flowing through those pipes, we need to shift our perspective. In that same year, 1948, American political scientist Harold Lasswell stepped away from the engineering side and proposed a convenient way to describe any act of communication. Just answer 5 key questions. Who is speaking? What are they saying? What channel are they using? Who are they talking to? And finally, with what effect? What's really interesting about Lasswell's approach is how he laid out these questions as a tangible step-by-step framework. You start with the communicator, translating to the message, passing through the medium, reaching the receiver, and culminating in the effect. He treated communication not just as a random transfer of data, but as a purposeful act designed to achieve a very specific outcome. To really ground this abstract theory, let's look at how perfectly Lasswell's model deconstructs a complex, real-world news broadcast. Take a CNN news report about the Fukushima nuclear leak. The who is the Tokyo Electric Power Company operator. What are they saying? Well, that radioactive material at 100 times the permitted level is flowing into the sea. The channel is CNN News via the television medium. To whom is the general public? And the effect? To alert the people of Japan to the immediate radiation danger. Lasswell's model just brilliantly breaks down mass communication into its core functional parts. Let's pivot to section 3, Schramm's two-way street, shifting from linear to circular communication. Now, Lasswell gave us fantastic categories for understanding the message, but those early models shared one major, glaring flaw. They completely assumed communication was just a one-way broadcast. Theorist Wilbur Schramm introduced a massive paradigm shift. He pointed out that communication is actually circular in nature. It isn't a straight line where a message just stops once it hits the destination. Actually, scratch that. It's more like a continuous revolving loop of encoding, decoding, sending, and reacting. The real game changer in Schramm's model is the addition of a totally new concept, the interpreter. This is absolutely huge. The receiver is no longer just a passive destination box like we saw in the telephone model. They're a vital, thinking person who is actively analyzing, perceiving, and trying to understand the message before they encode their own reply, sending the message right back. It's a continuous conversation.
Next up is Section 4, Berlow's Human Element, focusing on the SMCR model.
While Schramm made communication a two-way street, another theorist named David Berlow recognized that we had to go even deeper into the messy, complex human beings who were doing all this interpreting. In Berlow's SMCR model, which, by the way, stands for source, message, channel, and receiver, he expands our idea of a channel way beyond just a telephone cable or a TV screen. He points out that human beings rely on our 5 basic senses, hearing, seeing, touching, smelling, and tasting, to serve as the ultimate channels of information flow. But the biggest upgrade in Berlow's model lies in the source and receiver. He argues that when a source puts thoughts into words and a receiver tries to decode them, that whole process is deeply influenced by internal human factors. Things like our personal culture, our specific knowledge base, and our unique attitudes act as really heavy filters. Remember that disastrous text message we talked about at the beginning? This is why it happens. If you don't share similar cultural or knowledge filters with your friend, the message totally changes meaning in transit, even if there's absolutely zero physical noise in the room. And that brings us to our final section, Section 5, the future of connection, and where do we go from here? Looking back at the ground we've covered, we've traced an incredible arc. We went from mechanical engineers trying to clear static off telephone wires, to realizing communication is a continuous loop, to finally recognizing the deep psychological filters of the human mind. Today, our smartphones and fiber optic cables mean physical noise is largely a thing of the past. But I'll leave you with this provocative thought to ponder the next time you hit send. We might have perfected the channels, but have we perfected the message? No matter how flawless our technology becomes, true understanding still relies entirely on that beautifully messy human interpreter at the other end. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.